welcome back to Lumpy Studio. And today I'm here to review a recent movie in theaters. I'm going to be talking about Send Help, uh, the latest R-rated movie starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. So I was just really wanting to see a movie and get out of my dorm, and this is like the first big hit of 2026, basically, from everything I've seen. So I went to go see it. And, I knew it was R-rated, and I knew it starred Rachel and Dylan. So I'm like, okay, it seems like a lot of, like, pieces are aligning for me to enjoy it, and I really did enjoy it. Now, I don't particularly watch R-rated movies. I'm trying to think what I've even seen that's R-rated. I saw the first Omen, and I enjoyed that. It was decent. I think that was, like, the first actual R-rated movie that I saw in full. And then now this. But I'm not particularly one that's just going to go to every single R-rated movie out there. But this one just looked promising. It's interesting, the trajectory of this film and how you have Rachel's character Linda go from like can do a complete 180 from beginning to end as to where her life is now. You start off and they really tried to make her as ugly as they could. Like I started and I could barely even recognize her just because of how they styled her. It was just so different than what I'm used to with like her characters. But you know, you start off and she just lives by herself with her bird, and she's belittled by her new boss and passed up for the job, for the new job of VP. And what was it? By the end, she is successful and she now plays golf and she's a celebrity, and it just the complete 180 is crazy to me. Now, I do think she deserved that. She had a rough go for a good chunk of this movie, but you respect her coming out on the other side of all this. Now, you have to ask the question: do you respect the murder, or what she did? Because she did plenty of messed up stuff on that island, and I think it's something you really have to sit back and like really question morals when it comes to this movie, because this, I think, for some of it there is the aspect of morals and what's right and what's wrong, but then as the movie continues, you bring in survival of the fittest, where you're willing to take out anything that gets in the way of your survival. And that's basically that what by the end of the movie, that's basically what the two characters were doing. It was the survival of the fittest and everything. And you had clearly Linda was passionate about being a survivor. She sent in that interview tape for that show, and by the end she became a survivor. So it was a full circle moment, and she knew what she was doing. I mean, Bradley was impressed by her, what she was able to pull off, how knowledgeable she was. So it was nice to see her developing confidence throughout the movie, really coming into shine, showing off what she can do, not just to like prove herself to Bradley. I think it was like I think they wrote her character pretty well. For Bradley's character, I mean, he was a snob. Because there was times during the first little bit where it seemed like he was a little bit sympathetic to her as opposed to the other guys that he was with, but at the end of the day, he was still a dick to her. And then throughout the movie, you start to really wonder, is he changing? Like, is he taking her seriously? And during the scene where she tells him about her husband, I think for a part of it, it was a little bit genuine. Like, I could see something was shifting in his mind. But then once she said she gave him the keys to go off and die, basically, get into the accident, that's when something shifted into his mind. He thought that she was a psycho. So I do think there were some genuine aspects to it. Maybe from his side, and maybe from her side, she was starting to maybe see he isn't as bad as what she thought. But you had at the beginning, she sees the rescue boat coming, and she's like, "Oh, not yet." Like she's clearly like planning something. She doesn't want them to be found. So then you kind of ask yourself, does she not want them to be found because she wants to get with him and eliminate all possibility of them being found so they don't have to go back home to his fiance? Or is she staying to torture him? Now, but obviously the latter ended up being like true. Was she catching feelings for him? I mean, I think she obviously had a crush on him at the beginning, but I think with how he treated her, that crush kind of wore off. But, obviously they were out by themselves, so I do think there was attraction there, and it is Dylan O'Brien after all, so what can you expect? But one of my favorite scenes is after he tries to take the raft and he poisons her, but he didn't poison her right. He messed up like with the berries, and then she rescues him, and then she pukes in his face while trying to resuscitate. That was really funny. I really like that. There's a lot of comedic bits. There was people chuckling in the theater, which I thought was funny. I think it definitely hit the comedic beats right overall, while still remaining true to just being an R-rated movie in general. But after she saves him, and then she pretends like she's gonna cut off his genitals, and the fake out with the rat. I thought that was really funny. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. Just how they both played it was really well done. And basically, she takes matters into their own hands and says, like, basically, I'm your boss now, so you have to do what I say. She completely shifts it into his favor. Now, here's the thing, is that would she have planned to flip the tables at some point against him if he hadn't tried to escape and poison her? It's hard to say. I would like to believe that if everything went well, something would have happened between them. If like he hadn't like tried to do that, I think something would have happened. Now I don't think this relationship would have panned out at all, considering they would have eventually been found at some point. It was going to happen at some point, or one of them would die, because there are boars around. So this relationship was never going to work out regardless, and that really wasn't the point of the movie. It wasn't a romance movie. Going into it, it's an R-rated movie, so you have a feeling that even if something happens between them, it's not going to amount to anything. And for the record, I like that nothing happened between them. I think that would have made things way more messy than everything already was. I like that there might have been some feelings there, but it's very ambiguous, and you get to like kind of like think in your mind, was there something between them besides her having a crush on him at the beginning? That was pretty obvious, but I do think I would have liked a little bit more setup with that, like the dynamic of the business, like what happened, like why was she promised that position, what was what was happening there. I think they could have explored that dynamic a bit more, but I also understand that that's the exposition. You have to make the exposition as short as possible while still, trying to give as much as you can to set up the plot, but you have to jump into the big action, which was getting on the plane and then, getting onto the island with the crash and everything. That I will say the crash was really well done, how they filmed that. That was legit, like, scary to me. Like, they didn't mess around with that. So I thought that was really well done. And then, of course, what Donovan trying to, like, strangle her, and then you have your first technical murder. Now, that was complete self-defense. What she commits 4 murders in this movie, basically, like human murders. Donovan, and then the fiance and the captain, which I'll talk about in a second, and then Bradley at the end. Spoiler alert, but I figure you already know if you're watching this. But yeah, so I was wondering how the fiance was going to tie into this. I didn't think she would actually show up on the island, but then again, they had to have like Linda, to have like an obstacle and realize, oh crap, my whole plan is shit. Like, what am I gonna do now? So I like that they brought in the fiance. Now I would have thought that Bradley would have heard the screams or whatever when they fell off, but I guess that he realized soon enough. For me, if I were Linda, I would have. I would have like made sure like her whole body was covered. I'm like, well, oh, of course her hand is sticking out with the ring. Like, come on now. That was kind of stupid to me. I would have made sure she was completely covered, so there was no chance of her being found. If she really wanted to like get in Bradley's good shoes or whatever. At that point though, once he had tried to leave, there was nothing going to happen between them. She basically just wanted to eliminate that, and of course her plan failed, and then she had to murder 2 people, 2 completely innocent people. I feel like the fiance was genuinely a good person, but it's just that type of movie, survival of the fittest. Linda didn't want to go back to how things were, because she knew if they went back, Bradley would just be a dick to her again, and she would be in the same situation. Here in like the wilderness, she gained confidence. She got attractive. She proved herself. She was thriving out. You could see throughout how much she was thriving throughout, and how much her character changed. I mean, she still like did horrible things, but you could just see that as like a person, as a character, she was growing. She was becoming like the best version of herself, if you want to say that. And she knew that if they went back home, she wouldn't have that anymore. She would just go back to being the same person that she was before. Bradley wasn't going to change his mind. Again, you could debate whether he was starting to respect her or not, but at the end of the day, nothing would have changed. I think that's the point of all of this, is that, um, you change when you're put into a life or death situation like this, but you also don't change. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So even though they went through this whole thing, nothing would have changed when they had gotten back. You could debate that maybe Linda would have quit or done something else, but I mean, what else would she have done? It's hard to say. Now, by the end, of course, she's living her best life, but would she have been able to do that had Bradley still been around? That's hard to say. That's the question you kind of have to ask yourself. But as far as big, scary moments in this film, the only scenes that really made me jump scare, were the boar scene. Now, that was the most gruesome scene. That was more gruesome than the fights. Like, that legit freaked me out with the blood and everything. Like, ugh, ugh. And then the other scene that gave me a jump scare was when she's dreaming and then the fiance shows up as like a zombie post murder. That freaked me out too. But it wasn't a scary R-rated movie, I would say. Like, most of it was pretty. I mean, there were kids. They were okay. I'm not. I'm not going to talk long about this, but there were kids in the theater that people had brought their kids in to see this. No, even though there were only two jump scares, they were jumping all the time, and they're gonna have nightmares about that. So please, if you're listening to this, don't bring your kids to see this movie. I mean, it's an R-rated movie, and I don't even know why there's you should be allowed to bring in, even if you have even if the kids are with a parent. I don't see how it's okay for them to allow you to bring your kid in. And then not even just that, but parents thinking it's okay to expose their kids to an R-rated movie is crazy. But regardless, though, I didn't think it was too bad. I've had no nightmares yet. Maybe I'll have one after reviewing this. Now that I've had to process it all, but we'll see. But I thought the most underwhelming part to me of the movie was the final fight, because he does the classic thing of trying to calm her down to get her to lower the gun and say, "I love you." We've seen it so many times. It's such a classic trope. Master manipulator. And then of course he's full of shit, and he has a weapon behind him, and of course he goes down. Now let's be realistic. Would there have been any possibility or scenario where he would have killed her, and if he would have killed her and walked away, and the fast forward was of him? I mean, that would have ruined the whole movie, right? And people would be way more upset. There is a certain, I wouldn't say stereotype, but a certain thing of if he would have killed her, there would have been massive backlash. But because she killed him, it's the power dynamic, right? Because this was such there was such misogyny at throughout the movie, but especially during those first 30 minutes with the guys belittling her. So, she had to be the one to deliver the final blow. Now, she still should have gone to jail, in my opinion. It was self-defense, but she should have gone to jail for killing the fiancé and the captain. I mean, that captain had nothing to do with any of this, so I did feel bad for him. But, yeah, I thought that was, an underwhelming ending when he gave that whole speech. We knew he had a weapon behind him, so that was just a bit of a cop-out. I also didn't love that they brought in a beach house. It just, to me, felt very much glass oniony. And I didn't think it was really necessary. I would have been fine if they just had a big beach showdown and they didn't resort to a house, but that's just a minor thing. But again, by the end, she's living her best life, and that's how it ends. So, and by the end, she very much looks the most like Rachel McAdams throughout the whole movie, but her eye is completely intact. So I don't really know what happened there, but whatever. I would recommend it if you can handle R-rated movies and you're not a 6-year-old kid. I think you'll enjoy this movie. I mean, the acting is really good. I think they have good chemistry, not romantically. Again, I'm glad they didn't go the romantic approach. I mean, I think if they would have like done like had like a sex scene, it would have been like fine. It would have been hot or whatever. But I don't think it was necessary for the story they were trying to tell. And I do think if she would have had sex with him, that would have been character aggression in a sense, because like he was literally such a dick to her. And he, even if he had moments where it seemed like he felt bad for her, he still exposed and went along with what his friends are doing. So, I don't know. But yeah, so comment down below if you saw this movie. What did you think of it? What did you think of the writing, the acting, the murders, all of it? So yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and bye everyone.